Welcome to the Art of Succession podcast with Barrett Young. Join us as we explore the strategies, stories, and insights that shape the journey of leadership transitions and business success. No matter where you find yourself along the journey, this is the podcast where you'll find the tools to make it happen.
This whole business model is exactly the same as my real estate development company. I'm like, yep, it makes a lot of sense. We're just renovating different types of assets. Know what you want, what you're moving towards, and maybe 10 years down the road sell. But let's do all this work on the business first because there's so much potential still in there. Use those people while they're there for the growth as opposed to, letting it stagnate until it's your turn.
Welcome back to part 2 of my discussion with Stephanie Hayes. If you want to catch part 1 of our discussion where she had the aha moment that she was just building a business and not building an asset, you can catch that episode right here. Otherwise, let's get back to our episode. So, what were you consulting clients on before this realization within your own company, and how did it shift to where you are today?
It was still business model design. It was business strategy. And so here's what is so cool about this, about adding this sort of layer on. I'm still doing business architecture. I still do business growth. I still do the same work, but now that I have this sort of perspective on it and the context is different, it's much more valuable. So back then, I felt pretty good about strategy, but I could never anchor it in anything, right? Mm-hmm. Like we were always making our best guess based on numbers, based on past experience. But once I had this sort of last piece of the puzzle, now I could definitively say, here are the numbers, here's what we want to work towards. Now I know what we need to do, because we've got a specific goal in mind. Whereas a lot of business owners just don't have that sort of, they kind of say, well, I'd like to make $1 million. Doing what? How? Right? Like we could do that a number of different ways.
Yeah,
so
go out and hire somebody that is going to cost you
to run ads for you,
right? And you can pocket the $50,000.
Right. Yeah. And what kind of business do you want to build? Do you want to build a business where you make $1 million, but you keep 100,000 of it because you've run ads that get you $900,000 worth of revenue, and it's just not a profitable business? That's still a viable business model, but it just looks very different in terms of what you keep than if it was something else, right? So there's so much that goes into this and so much that you have to consider about the person as well and what they want. But this, what I found was this just was sort of like that end cap. We were able now to figure out what a strategy was based on where they wanted to end up. Whereas before it was just kind of like, well, I just want to increase my revenue. Okay, well, there's lots of different ways to do that. We're going to take our best guess, but now I have something to definitively work towards. And I think that changed the nature of the work that I do. I'm still backing into growth strategy. We're still doing, some people, there's sort of 3 paths that people come to us with. They always come and they say, I need to sell my business. So either they're like, yeah, I'm done. I'm ready. Let's just sell. So in that case, we work with our partners and we help advise them to get them through that transaction. And we'll introduce them to our private equity partners. We'll introduce them to business brokers. We will be their advisor. If that's really where you're at, that you're just ready to go, fine. But mostly what happens is folks come to us and they say, I'm just burned out. I want to burn my business down. I need to sell it. I need to get rid of it. They're either, they want that end goal in mind, but they don't know how to get there and they don't know what that looks like. And so they're the ones who are going to have sort of 3, 5, 7 years to get there, but they're fine with that. And they want to work on building the value over time. So that's what the work that we do with them. But some of them actually don't want to sell their business. They don't want to move out of their business. They're done, right? And so we do business model design with those guys. We change the nature of the business, the role that they have in their business. That's the whole business architecture piece, which is really fun. And of course, a growth strategy. So people land in these, in that sort of first category. There's also the people that are just being forced into an exit, health issues or some other catastrophic external event or whatever, right? But I would say those 3 paths are the primary paths that most people are on. And depending on where they are at and what they actually need. And, I was talking to a lady the other day and she's just like, I just need to get rid of, I'm so sick of it, blah, blah, blah. What she was sick of was the role she was playing inside her business, but she really liked what she had built, right? So now our job is to figure out what her growth strategy is and how she moves herself out of that role inside her business.
Yeah. I was actually just having this conversation with a buddy today who said, they're taking steps to make their company more attractive to an outside buyer. And I'm like, it's kind of like selling a house.
Yeah.
You get your house ready to put on the market, and then you're like, wow, why didn't I do this earlier? I like the features we've added to the house now, and I don't necessarily want to sell. And so that project can benefit the business owner that doesn't want to get out.
It's a totally valid analogy, and I'll tell you two reasons why. I forgot to mention this, but one of the key experiences I had that really got me into this was at that same time, we came across a couple down in Australia their big business was teaching people who had come from the real estate development world how to buy, renovate, and sell these little $500 businesses. And it's a website, right? You can buy a little website that some guy in Pakistan has built up traffic to this little website, and then you buy it. You do a whole bunch of work on it, and you increase the value of it, and you renovate it, and then you sell it for $6,000. And then someone picks it up for $6,000, does a whole bunch of other work on it, and sells it for $12,000, and so on and so forth, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they saw the potential for real estate people who flip houses to understand that whole model. It was very much the same. Now, my partner and I are building out my business model because she comes from another perspective. And so the two of us are doing this work together with our clients. And she used to own a real estate development company. And she's like, Stephanie, this whole business model is exactly the same as my real estate development company. I'm like, yep, it makes a lot of sense. We're just renovating different types of assets.
The company that you've got with the partner now, is that a separate company that you started, that you acquired? Talk to me about that company.
Yeah, it will become a new entity.
Okay.
Right now we're in early stages because we've been working together for a long time, and then we just kind of went, you know what, why are we not doing this together? Because we both believe so much in the model. I had already done so much thinking about the business model. I was building it myself. And then when we started having these conversations, I'm like, this is crazy. Like, we're so much more powerful together. And she's got lots of great connections on the private equity side. And so now we get to build this much bigger entity, which is going to see us building an investment fund for other women to invest in, for us to actually be the ones that acquire some of these businesses, build that whole model for renovation, and then sell. So like, this is becoming something much bigger than what I had originally been building. And, maybe would have gotten there over time, but without the partnership, it would have taken me a lot longer to get there. So this is kind of exciting. We're testing it out right now as partners, and then probably going to stand up a new entity when that gets borne out.
Gotcha. Okay. So it's a different purpose then for this one than what you had been doing in the consulting then.
It's very similar. Very similar. It's just, growing. It's a lot. The scope is bigger.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Had you already discovered buy then build at the point of this aha moment to you? Talk to me about Walker and how he fits in with all of this.
I only discovered Walker Deibel's book last year.
Okay. About the same time I did then.
Yeah, and I started listening to it, and I was like, oh, right? So there's a lot of value in understanding from the buy side, right? So he's in part of this world like Cody Sanchez and others around the investorpreneur sort of perspective. And I was actually working with a private equity partner for a while who was trying to build a whole community for investorpreneurs. But Walker's whole perspective is on, rather than start up a new business, just go acquire one that has been, and he's got lots of great, ideas around how you can do that with low capital down, et cetera, et cetera. But when you look at and understand the buyer's perspective, that really helps you advise your clients on the sell perspective, right? So I want to be able to represent, not necessarily from a formalized perspective, but I want to know what to advise my clients on based on understanding the buyer's perspective as well. So he's got lots of great stuff inside his book that helps me make decisions for my clients on what they do on the sell side.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So his book is even beneficial for your clients who already started their business, just because it is from the perspective of, if you're going to buy a business and build on top of it, this is what you should be looking for. And you're going into these businesses and saying, this is what this type of buyer is looking for. And so let's put that in place here.
Yeah. And as someone who wants to also be an investopreneur, I don't know how much you like that term, but for lack of a better one, for somebody who also has that, perspective, his book was great, right? Like his community is great. His book is great. He's got other stuff and things that are valuable. So yeah, the whole space is super interesting to me.
With your experience and where you're at right now with your clients and everything, when would you advise somebody to go out on their own and build something from scratch versus buying? Or do you think buying is always the answer? I know it's never going to be always the answer, but how do you weigh that in a certain situation? Do you ever have a client where you are like, no, it probably would be better for you to just burn this thing down to the ground and start over, or not invest another 7 years into turning this around, but let's sell this for what it is and go do something else?
Yep, I did have a client like that, and it was more a matter of circumstance and kind of where she was at, and she had just gotten to the point where she was like, I'm done. I'm just done. And so, and she had also gotten herself in a bit of a messy situation with a partner. And so she ended up selling to the partner, but it was a long and drawn out, like I was with her the whole step of the way with every conversation and the brokers. And yeah, it was not going to end well. And it still hasn't ended well years later. So she didn't have any other options. Like she had already gotten herself committed with this partner. And so we just had to find the most elegant way out. But I would say in terms of like just start something up on your own, of course, there's I grew up in the .com era, right? Like it was just hyper startup. And my job I was in my mid 20s. My job was to be incubating little businesses inside of a parent company. And so we were in these sort of hyper startup phases all the time and building from scratch. I think when you've got money, when you've got investment, when you have like that path already drawn out for you, yeah, I think there's a great opportunity there if you've got a very innovative idea, something that's new, that's appropriate. And it can be really fun, but it's a hard slog. I was an entrepreneur mentor at the university here and working with people who are coming out of academia and had these very, greenfield ideas. And that's all you can do, right? Then is develop it, right? So in that respect, yes, I did a lot of work in the startup world, and it's hard, right? It's hard. But if you have the backing of the university's investment fund and you've got some money behind you, like go for it, right? You're testing your ideas. But if you just want to become an entrepreneur, go buy something. Like go buy something that already exists, because you've got a whole bunch of information about it already. And even if it's not doing so well, you at least know what needs to be done, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you don't have to go through all the growing pains of building a brand and yada, 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 right? So yeah, if your goal is to just own a business, go buy something.
Because even if it's not doing so well, it's probably going to at least be a year, maybe 2 years head start on going out on your own and starting that same thing from scratch.
To be a lot more focused in the work that you do to get it there, right? And especially if you can find a business in an area that you know a lot about or what have you, like there's lots of options.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, just to share some of my personal story, I went out and started my own accounting firm in 2012, and I ran that for 5.5 years. and realized I did not enjoy all the aspects of building that company from scratch that I thought I was going to enjoy. And so in 2017, reached out to a mentor of mine and ended up closing that company and joining up with her. And over here, I'm able to focus on the areas that I like because there's already systems and there's already employees and there's strengths to build all that other stuff. And so for me, that's what really hit me with buy then build was I don't have to solve 100% of the problems from day one. I can focus on the ones that I really enjoy, and these are operating over here fine. And once I can shift my focus over there and fix those, then, but it's not like from day one I have to have all this figured out. So that really resonated with me. I wanted to shift now to succession planning. So we're talking here maybe familial relationship. We're talking mentor and a mentee or somebody that taught me everything I know about this profession. What benefit is there to this approach that you take with businesses when the idea of increasing evaluation can often be contentious, where it's like the parent generation is going to get their buyout and then screw over the next generation coming in. So what would you advise for that?
Yeah, well, I can't pretend to have enough experience with familial buyouts to know how often that occurs, that there is contention. But at the end of the day, it's in the best interest of both parties to be able to build the valuation of the business. And so, if I want to put my Pollyanna hat on and be, expect the best from everybody, I would say that if you are the one leaving, looking for your long-term exit, there's a lot of benefit in you building out the value of the business now in anticipation of that exit, because you get a bigger chunk of the puzzle or the pie, right? Whereas if you are the person who is leading in, who is the successee, I guess, is that the right word?
Successor,
I don't know.
yeah.
Successor.
Mm-hmm.
Then building, I'm assuming you're part of the business right now. Why would you not be doing everything you can to increase the value of that business so that by the time you take it over, you've got a bigger share of the pie as well? So, I guess it happens where, folks have different reasons and different agendas. But from my perspective, I think at the end of the day, it makes sense for both parties to be trying to drive up the value of the business.
Yeah. And when that buyout is based on an actual valuation, there's proof that's proof, right? Or it's been proven that this is because this system is in place and we'll pay for it in the long term. So I think that's going to be a lot more understandable from the buyer's perspective than just mom and dad said this is the price. I don't know where that price came from, but I guess that's what I got to live with. And so in that case, it would be like, no, I don't want to increase that price.
I guess so. And I guess that's the stuff of TV shows, or maybe it's reality. But, I would love to be taking on a business that was doing well. Right.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, then that's the idea behind the 9 assets within a business is these assets are generating revenue.
Yeah.
And so you're buying these assets. You're not just buying a figure because the predecessor, mom and dad, said this is what it is. You're buying an asset that's going to provide for your family, and that's going to be an asset still that you're going to improve upon to sell to somebody else in the future too. You're not just going to get stuck holding the bag on this thing.
Yeah, I think it's the short-term thinking versus the longer-term thinking that while you have somebody available to you who, has been maybe started up this business many, many years ago or has been in this business for a really long time, that's an asset for you to, eventually improve that business over time so that it's better for you to take over in the long run. So use those people while they're there for the growth as opposed to, letting it stagnate until it's your turn.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Going back to the house analogy, you fix up your house, you were going to put it on the market, you decide to stay there now. Make a case for selling the house. So you've gone in, you've improved the business, you don't have anything urgent telling you to get out. What do you talk clients through to help weigh the pros and cons of, is now the time to sell the company, or should you stick it out for another 3 more years and increase the value even more.
One of the things that I do with my clients is post-exit planning, right? So what is it that you want, and what is it that you want from the business? So, great example, this lady that I just met with recently, she's actually a client of my partner's, and she has, gotten to this, I just need to sell it and get rid of it stage. And as I sat and I listened to her, I realized she doesn't want to sell and get rid of it. Like, she thinks she does, but she doesn't. What she really wants is a different role inside of her business. And until we have defined that role for her and defined her pathway, the pathway she wants to be on would actually would benefit the business she has right now. And the business she has right now could drive that pathway that she wants to be on. So rather than get rid of this part of the business that she just doesn't want to do anymore, let's get you moving into that new role and let this business support that and drive that. And you've got a team in place who can operate this business. So you just need to stop being part of it. Like, you just need to stop meddling because you have nothing else to do, right? So, it was very clear to me that she really didn't want to be exiting. What she wanted to do was build something new that was related, that was sort of the next evolution for her. And she could continue to benefit from this piece and, every now and then be the sort of figurehead that comes in and does something. And that's very satisfying for her. But she was getting back into the nitty gritty operations because she wanted to feel like she was valuable inside the business. But all it did was sort of throw off her team. So for her, the advice was don't sell, but know what you want, what you're moving towards, and maybe 10 years down the road sell. But let's do all this work on the business first because there's so much potential still in there. And why don't you benefit from that? Well, building this thing that's actually going to keep you really excited. So it's so much about understanding the person, understanding the owner, understanding their goals, who they are as an individual, and where they're going to put their energy. Because I could give you a strategy that makes sense on paper, but if you hate it and it's not aligned with who you are as an individual, as a business owner, you're not going to put any energy into it. It's not going to be successful, right? So it's part of the value that we bring is being able to see these things in these people, because we're still people. We're still human beings. We're still individuals that own businesses, and that these matter to us, right? The only time I've seen that sort of not play out is in the whole like Silicon Valley tech bro, like pump and dump sort of build a VC funded, mass exit kind of deal. And then there's a little less of the emotion inside of there. But for the most part, all these business owners are human beings and they all have desires. And we wouldn't be doing our jobs if all we did was play from a playbook that said, oh, in this circumstance, always sell your business. It's not true.
And I'd imagine that post-exit planning also then makes it easier for that seller to separate themselves from their business too, because you've achieved X, Y, Z. You said you wanted to go on and do this.
Yeah.
Is this still where you are mentally?
It's a massive problem when business owners get out of their business those first sort of 6 months, and they just they feel like they've lost all of their contribution. They feel like they're not doing anything valuable. They have all this regret and remorse. But if we do the work to figure out what's next for them, again, all different people. So for some people, they want to be like, no, I'm peacing out. I'm just going to sit on a beach and wherever and don't talk to me. Like, I don't want to hear anything about it. I'm done. Whereas some other people are like, I need to be busy and contributing. So maybe they have a more transitional role out and they, do a period of time where they're really just an advisor, or they no longer own the business, but they can still be on the board, or who knows. And for some people, they want to dive right into another project, and that keeps them on another path where they feel valuable and like they're contributing. So whatever that is for that particular person, it's such an important conversation to have, before you sell, because then you get really focused on, I've seen people sabotage a sale because they couldn't get their head around losing their baby, right? Like it gave them such a sense of purpose, right? So we have to do that work with a lot of the business owners, because otherwise it could be a very emotional and difficult exercise, and it can really affect the transaction at the end of the day.
Yeah, that's good stuff. Stephanie, was there anything that I haven't touched on or that you wanted to share that we haven't, a direction we haven't headed yet?
I don't know. We've talked about a lot of stuff. I think, there's
very
always
good.
more to talk about. But I would just say, like, this is a whole new, way of thinking for a lot of business owners. And, thinking about your business as having longevity and having value is something new for them. But it really, really shifts your whole perspective and your energy around your business. And I would say it's really worth having the conversation.
Yeah. Is it ever too late
To
to find purpose and to increase the value
No.
of your business?
No.
I mean, we joked that, 6 months, it's kind of like there's not much you're going to be able to do there. But I was just having
I
this
see what you're
discussion.
saying.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. If your timeline is like, I'm going to sell in 3 months, well, you're just going to get what you get, right? Like it would be very hard to make a substantial change in what you would be valued at right at that point in time. So in that sense, it can be too late to change the valuation of what you're selling for. But is it ever too late to start thinking about this stuff? No, I don't think so. I think there's possibility. Like, I look at a business as like a canvas, right? As an art canvas. And there are lots and lots of things you can do with a business. It just, all comes down to who's running it, goals, what they want, what they're willing to do, like all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, I don't think it's ever too late to start thinking this way.
Okay. All right. Great. All right. Are you ready for a lightning round as we wrap up our
Yes.
episode?
Okay, let's go.
All right. Coffee or tea, and how do you like it?
Now it's tea. It used to be coffee, but I have become very sensitive to caffeine. So there's still caffeine in tea, but I like tea with honey and cream.
Okay. All right. Pie or cake, and do you have a specific kind you like?
Pie. I like pie. I love pastry. Anything pastry. Flaky. Yeah, I guess that's me, flaky, right? Anything with pastry. And if it's a type of pie, I would say probably like a peach pie or maybe like a berry pie.
Okay. All right. What is a common belief among entrepreneurs that you would want to challenge?
That you are going to arrive at a destination. So a lot of people are always waiting to get to a place, and then they're always like perpetually disappointed in themselves because they haven't gotten to that place. But if they really look back, they probably surpassed it, right? Like they feel like they're going to get somewhere and it's just going to be stable and they're going to, like, nothing's going to change. And I think if you've gotten to that place, you've actually failed. So that as soon as people start to just accept that entrepreneurship is a continuum and it's like a constant evolution, then you become a lot more comfortable and you can see the creativity in that.
Yeah, I like to joke that entrepreneurship is a search for better problems because we're never going to make the problems go away. We're just going to move on from the problems that we had in year one. Year 7 problems are going to look different than year 5 problems were. They're sometimes going to even be harder to deal with.
But problems aren't really a problem, right? Like they're shining a light on an opportunity.
It's an opportunity. It's a chance for us to be creative, to do, solving problems is what actually keeps us engaged and alive in the business too. So keep looking for better problems. Otherwise you'll be bored. So, what is your favorite holiday and why?
Oh, my favorite holiday. Is it really cheesy to say Christmas?
Half my guests say either Christmas or Thanksgiving. So no, I'm going to say you're fine.
No, it's just the feeling around Christmas. I'm not a religious person, and so I don't come at it from that perspective. But for me, it's around the rest and just the family, like just being able to be around my family a lot and just how joyful everyone is.
Okay, awesome. Are you a morning or a night person, and do you have a favorite routine?
I used to be a night person, and everything's changing as I enter menopause. So now I wake up at 3 o'clock every morning,
Whether you want to or not.
whether I want to or not. So I've become a morning person, and actually I really enjoy it. I often start my day at 7 in the morning, and I have that buffer time beforehand, and I find that that's my most creative and my most productive time is sort of like between 7 and 10. So I've become a morning person. It's really weird.
Great. What is one thing that you would want your successor to remember you for?
Like truly and genuinely impacting people's lives, like really making change for them. And every time I hear that from one of my clients, it really like fills my heart. I don't want to be known as the best strategist. I don't want to be known as the best implementer. What I want to be known as is that I saw people for who they are and I understood people for who they are. And that way the decisions we made and the impact that we made was really real, you know?
Awesome. That's great. Where are you finding creativity right now?
In rest and in travel. So I just came back from San Francisco for just like the weekend. And holy smokes, what came out of me while I was traveling was like getting out of your environment and getting out of your day to day just opens up, things that I'd been putting off for 20 million weeks. And then, I sat down and did them in half an hour. And it wasn't even productivity. It was like everything was clear. So just getting out of my existing environment is really important.
Great. What do you have coming up in the next year or so that's got you really excited?
This is a year of partnership. It's a year of growth. It's a year of like new opportunities. And so this partnership that I'm developing with my partner is really exciting because it's putting a whole new level and a whole new layer on what I was planning to do already. And then I am also starting up a new venture with another partner that's in a totally new space, and it's all around self-managing organizations and, self-managing teams and just some like a totally new area of thinking that I'm pretty excited about.
Okay, great. Stephanie, where can people go to find out more about you?
Best place to find me is on my website, stephaniehayes.biz, or I'm pretty active on LinkedIn.
Okay, great. I will link that down in the show notes. So I just want to thank you for the time that you've shared on the episode today. And this has been a great conversation. And hopefully we can do it again sometime.
Thanks so much for having me.
I hope that you've enjoyed this very insightful discussion with Stephanie Hayes. Here on The Art of Succession, we have new episodes featuring business owners with their own succession stories twice a month. If you're interested in being a guest on The Art of Succession, you can find our interview link down in the description below. If this has been a helpful episode for you, I ask that you please share it with others, and you might enjoy this next episode. And I want to thank you for watching The Art of Succession.